Imagine that. Scam Sam for president. I gotta say, this guy's a bit of a clown. I nominate Caroline for VP. Sam is a beautiful puzzle, a man willing to flip a coin as to the continued existence of life on Earth. Judge Kaplan, it is the judgment of the court that you are sentenced, baby Scam Sam. Ouch. Well, it seems our dear friend Scam Sam has been sentenced 25 years in jail. So I'm going to go over all the details of what happened today, because a lot of crazy stuff actually happened. Judge Kaplan himself spoke, Sam spoke, the prosecutor spoke, and of course Sam's defense lawyer, Mukazi, the supposed pit bull. He did get aggressive in some points. So I'll get started right away. Here are the chapters. It's pretty in-depth stuff. You want to skip along? Well, go for it. And if you're wondering where I am, I've been in the woods for the past 2 weeks in a pretty remote area close to the Canadian border. So, zero reception. But I also had to be back to civilization for Scam Sam's sentencing. Of course, can't miss that. Alrighty, so everything started around 9:45, 10 a.m. this morning. Judge Kaplan starts off by saying that for the record, he wants to include this in the record, that actually one of his new law clerks who worked at a firm called Wilmer and Hale actually the firm represents Miss Caroline Ellison. Of course, the beautiful Caroline Ellison. So Judge Kaplan points this out because he wanted to be on the record, saying that his law clerk did not work on the case dealing with Caroline Ellison. But it does seem like a strange coincidence. Okay, so straight off the bat, the judge says that he rejects completely and wholly the defense's argument about loss, about zero loss. He says both on the law and on the facts, completely rejected, rightfully so. It was a pathetic argument to begin with. Kaplan says that the assertion that the customers will be paid in full is completely and wholly misleading, where the defendant's team is equating loss with dollar amounts in the bankruptcy case, which of course is wrong. He goes on to say that investors and lenders also were injured parties, where the crimes here included FTX taking customer money with which the defendant had no right and using it to make speculative investments by Alameda and a variety of other firms. And rightfully so, Judge Kaplan says that a fortuitous run-up on the value of all the cryptocurrencies, or at least some of them, bears no relation to the gravity and the severity, the seriousness of the crime committed. He said a thief who takes the loot to Vegas and successfully gambles with the stolen funds is not entitled to getting the sentence reduced, even if the money is paid back. With Kaplan saying that for the reasons well articulated by Mr. John Ray, the current CEO of FTX Crypto Exchange, that people will be paid back in full is speculative. Just some days ago, John Ray wrote a letter to Judge Kaplan saying that Scam Sam continues to live a life of delusion, that he's completely absent of any remorse, that his remorse is non-existent, that the harm is vast. Ouch. And on top of that, Scam Sam made callously and demonstratively false claims in the sentencing memorandum, of course, to try to reduce his prison term. So even John Ray does not think that the loss is zero. Scam Sam continuing to live a life of delusion. Well, no surprise there. But it's not just Scam Sam, to be fair. His defense team, his parents, the supposed elite legal intelligentsia at Stanford. Anyways, back to Judge Kaplan. So he's going down the list of the sentencing guidelines. He says that he finds the loss amount readily exceeds $550 million, which is the top tier in the guidelines. He continues, he says he found investors lost $1.7 billion, lenders lost $1.3 billion, and customers lost $8 billion, all according to Judge Kaplan. He starts talking about the number of victims, and then he turns to Scam Sam's defense lawyer, Mukazi, and he asks him, do you want to be heard? He says that his memo, the memo they filed to reduce the sentencing, was made before we saw the victim impacts letters. Super stupid. Judge Kaplan, rightfully so, he says, so you're signaling that there's not much merit to the argument you made in the sentencing memorandum. You don't have to answer that. I'll do it for you. Objection overruled. Super stupid. He continues, the proposed 2-point adjustments for use of sophisticated means, I agree with the U.S., with the government. On obstruction of justice, Mr. Bankman-fried's text to the former general counsel at FTX Crypto Exchange did in fact constitute attempted witness tampering. He also says that he found 3 perjury findings just on the trial testimony, that there may be more, but these are the ones he's pointing out. The first one saying that Sam gave perjured testimony at trial when he falsely testified that it wasn't until the fall of 2022 that he had no knowledge that Alameda had spent FTX customer funds. Secondly, Judge Kaplan found that when Sam testified that he first learned of the $8 billion on October of 2022, he perjured himself. Lastly, he found that Sam falsely testified that repayment of third-party loans by Alameda would require Alameda to borrow more customer funds from FTX crypto exchange. After making those points, Judge Kaplan turns to Scam Sam's defense lawyers, asking them if they want to address any of these points that he just spoke about. Mukasey said, "No, I do not." Of course, it's like a pie-in-the-face moment. Okay, next the judge says he actually limited his findings on obstruction to support the charges, that there may be more, that the total offense level is 60, but once you cross 43, you can't get any higher. That guideline in itself is life in prison. Ouch. Adding that the maximum in this case is 1,320 months, which is 110 years. Next, the judge is asking if there's any victims who wish to address the whole court. Prosecutor Roos, he says that there's one who wishes to speak. Okay, so the victim's name is Sunil Kavuri. I've mentioned him before. He actually is part of a large class action lawsuit against FTX estate. Him and the others in the lawsuit, they want to be paid the crypto amount. They make some good arguments, including that the law firms have actually violated the bankruptcy code. Since FTX estate hired Sullivan and Cromwell, there's a conflict of interest. Therefore, they argue that the whole thing is basically a sham, which of course it probably is. Anyways, Mr. Sunil Kavuri addressing the court. He says, "I flew in from London so that you could hear from an actual victim in person, that I wanted to address you, Judge Kaplan, in person." He says, "You have done a fantastic job at trial, and many creditors, customers, feel exactly the same way." He says, "I'd like to address the argument that the loss was zero. They continue to claim this in the media. I have suffered for 2 years, where the bankruptcy estate is assuming or mischaracterizing us as unsecured creditors, but we actually have property rights. And Sullivan and Cromwell has trampled over those property rights. They have liquidated billions and billions of dollars of crypto assets. For example, Sullivan and Cromwell sold a crypto token at 11 cents. Now trading at $2. And before, FTX actually had held $10 billion in Solana crypto token. It sold it at 70% discount. And this is a pretty damning accusation. He says they're selling the cryptocurrency, the crypto tokens, to their own institutional clients, in this case, Galaxy, thereby destroying customer value, destroying our property value. Then there's the example of Anthropic, where our assets were used to buy the stake in the company. That was our property." Judge Kaplan chimes in saying, "Your thoughts are appreciated, but I'm here to sentence Sam Bankman-Fried. Nonetheless, I accept your assertions that the claims that the customers will be made whole is totally inaccurate." Mr. Kavuri continues. He says that at least three people have committed suicide because of the FTX collapse and because of the FTX bankruptcy, because of Sam. I am hurt. Other co-conspirators, aiders, and abettors should be held accountable, not just Sam. Totally true. Judge Kaplan chimes in again. He says, "I think it would be helpful if you could bring your arguments to a close soon." Mr. Sunil Kavuri says, okay. Well, he thanks the court, and that was it. Judge Kaplan tells the witness, thank you. He says that normally he would enumerate the various paperwork, all the records that he has considered in his ruling. But he says he's not going to do that. He says he must depart because last night, between the hours of 9 p.m. and this morning, 9 a.m., he has received about 1,000 pages, over 450, just from Scam Sam's team. He called it an avalanche. And of course, the remainder being from the prosecution and other parties. Now Judge Kaplan recognizes Mr. Mukasey, the defense lawyer. He's going to make a statement on behalf, of course, of his client. I gotta say, this guy is a bit of a clown. The memorandum that this guy filed, that his team filed, along with the parents, the character reference letters, super pathetic. Really bad. Anyways, let's see what he has to say. He says, I don't want to say anything that would disrespect the jury or the victims, but we are going to appeal. We have also listened, and we understand the pain. My team did not live through the trial, but we've studied the record where the government points to James Nicholson, who stole from widows. They also point to Bernie Madoff, who they say stole from Holocaust survivors. That is not Sam. He never wanted to inflict personal pain on anyone. Sam was not and never was a ruthless financial serial killer. He was not predatory. He makes decisions with math in his head and no malice in his heart. Very passionate. Oh my God. And then he brings up Barbara. His mother says Sam is misunderstood. This guy's trying to hit a home run here. It's easy to put people in old-fashioned categories, such as the greedy swindler, saying that Sam never scurried away with money, that he stayed until the end, that he'll tell you more just how much more it means to him for customers to get repaid. He continues, Sam is an awkward math nerd. He's also vegan. Always with the vegan thing. He has an off-the-chart intellect. Sam is a beautiful puzzle. Yeah, he said that. Next, he says that Sam can parse words better than a Talmudic scholar. Yeah, no joke. He said that. He says that he was a billionaire, completely unconcerned with material possessions. This is mighty, mighty low. Very pathetic. That in middle school, Sam was thinking about ethical obligations on a global scale to help the world population. That in college, he spent time helping animals. That on Wall Street, he gave a lot of his earnings to charity, saying that's all through the age of 21. And all of this devotion of Sam to others, Sam's heart, predated FTX crypto exchange. He continues that Sam never sought to be the king of crypto, that all he ever wanted was just to have the largest impact in the world, but not the kind where the ends justify the means, because this would harm the altruistic movement, effective altruism. Oh my God, not a joke. He continues, who is standing by Sam? Not Tom Brady, not Larry David, not Katy Perry, but scientists, scholars. That's who's standing with Scam Sam. That Sam was never posing, that he was always committed to doing good. On top of that, that he's lately been tutoring people at the Metropolitan Detention Center in jail, and that he knows he has learned that he comes off as kind of unlikable. So he's been practicing how to make eye contact with people the right way. That his mother, Barbara Fried, says there is a terrific sadness, a terrific, beautiful sadness at his core, where Sam would be uncomfortable giving someone a hug, but he would give that person his kidney. What a good guy. He continues, Sam has been in the worst prison in the whole country for 7 months. Mukazi says, I understand there has to be a perception that justice has been served. He says, I'm reminded of the case of Stephen Irving, where he was predatory and only got 21 years. Please do not destroy the prime of this young man's life. Please let him meet a partner and have a baby. Baby Scam Sam. You can't make this up. You can sentence him to work hard and give it all away. A few years ago, a judge wrote about a white-collar defendant who spread the bread of charity over waters. He returned all the money. Sam has been kind. Please let him harvest. Judge Kaplan, we ask that you sentence him with a compassionate heart. Mukazi, full of passion. Whew. Anyways, Judge Kaplan says thank you. Now, it's Scam Sam's turn. Mr. Samuel Bankman-fried. Okay, so Sam begins by saying that he appreciates what Mr. Mukazi said about him. He says, I don't know if the most important thing is my emotional state, my life, or potentially my future children. Sam says that he agrees with what customers such as the victim, Mr. Sunil Kavuri, said, especially about being deprived of gains, where Sam says that victims have been waiting for 1.5 years. He said what mattered the most at FTX were his colleagues, saying, I threw away what they built. They were let down. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about everything that happened at every stage. Things I should have done and said, and things that I didn't. My colleagues, they followed me across the world, across the earth, across continents, working past 2 a.m. I remember many of them, for example, Natalie being a former assistant that also wrote a character reference letter for Sam. Sam continues saying that Natalie taught herself to run a media department. She was doing the job of 10 people. My brother had a crazy idea on how to save lives. Everything looked like it was going to work. Gary Wang sent me a message one day. He had a link to a crypto exchange. Shortly thereafter, the crypto industry rebuilt its image of itself from what Gary Wang had made. So many things that Gary had made became industry standard. Sam continues, Alameda was in danger of a collapse. I got a message about how to fix it. It was from Nishad Singh. He's famously humble. Yeah, he looks real humble. Anyways, he says, and then there's Caroline, sweet Caroline, quite something, mostly self-taught. She asked me for advice on her reviews of employees. I read some of the reviews, her writings. I learned so much. My colleagues, they threw themselves into the work, and I threw that all away. It haunts me to this day. I made a series of bad decisions. They were not selfish decisions. Alameda was not bankrupt. FTX crypto exchange was not bankrupt. Alameda's gains were lost. It was over-leveraged. It was over-leveraged more than it should have been. So we had to liquidate to meet the run on FTX. Then we had to shut it down, but FTX would have survived. It was an unpleasant couple of weeks. I made a lot of mistakes, but that's not how the story ends. Customers were not paid back. FTX did not survive it, but they could have been paid back. Yes, customers have been receiving conflicting claims of their funds. That's caused a lot of damages. Sam says it's because there are enough assets, and it's not because of the rise in crypto price. In the price of cryptocurrency, that hasn't hurt. As Mr. Sunil Kavuri said, why have they not been paid back? The customers. To be fair, there was a liquidity crisis, which was in part my doing. Oh my God. Right before sentencing, getting the book thrown at his face. This is just not a good look. And Boneheaded Sam continues. He says this is not the time or place to tell the full story. A good place to start would be with the affidavit filed by Daniel Friedberg with the bankruptcy court, saying that probably Daniel Friedberg made some enemies and that Moskowitz has been fighting them in court. All these law firms fighting each other, basically. There have been some at FTX that have stood up for customers, but mostly they have been failed by more people than I can count, which includes myself. As the CEO of FTX, I was the leader. That means I was responsible at the end of the day. It doesn't matter why things got so bad. If you're the CEO, it's on you. I'm not the one who matters the most at the end of the day. My useful life is probably over. I've long since given what I have to give. I can't have any good impact if I get 5 or 40 years. And I certainly cannot do that from prison. And I know how prosecutors, how the court, and even the media sees me, and I understand it. You referenced my text message to general counsel at FTX. I was just trying to help. But of course, that's not how the prosecution saw it. It's not how the media saw it. I want to address something that Mr. Kavuri mentioned. He said that it seemed like we were denying there was pain. I can see that now. At the end of the day, it looks like customers will finally get paid the current value of the assets. And it's true for lenders and investors as well. I wish I had been able to do more to help. And I think I failed at doing that. I'm not sure why, but I think I failed. There is an opportunity to do what I thought I would do for the world, not what I ended up doing. If people do what they can for the world, hopefully I can see their success instead of just seeing my own failures. Thank you, Judge Kaplan. And that was Scam Sam's final statement. Pretty bizarro. And I gotta say, pretty darn stupid right before getting sentenced to try to explain yourself. This whole convoluted scam. It just made no sense. It was pretty bad. The worst part is, I'm sure that little speech was worked on by his pathetic lawyers and of course even by his parents. No bueno at all. Honestly, the whole argument was so bad, it almost seems fake. Well, that was that for Scam Sam. Moving on. Judge Kaplan wants to know if the prosecution is going to give a last speech. And yes, they will. I kind of was hoping it was the badass Danielle Sassoon, but it's actually Nicholas Roos. He starts out by saying that Samuel Bankman-Fried stole $8 billion. That it was absolute theft spread from customers all over the world, impacting people significantly and causing grave harm, causing damage. Saying, I want to address a few of the victims' letters, their impact letters, where Roos goes on to talk about a man living in Portugal losing his life savings, where this fellow from Portugal, the day before the bankruptcy, his daughter was just born, where he was completely marred by an ominous specter of financial ruin, of financial instability, especially given his newborn daughter. He says then there's a 23-year-old Moroccan, the eldest son, that he kept the money on FTX, that he did this not to loan the money to the Sam Bankman-Fried family, but he put it there thinking it was for his family's security. In another letter, there's an example of a couple in their 60s having invested their whole life savings into FTX, where they had retired and having become so depressed at losing all their money, they actually had to go back to work. He continues, Mr. Mukazi said the defendant, Scam Sam, didn't look his victims in the eyes. I disagree. These people, these young people, look into people's eyes through Twitter, through X. Furthermore, the defendant also took $1.7 billion from investors, not just FTX customers. Some people receive 40 years or more just from that alone. Let's not forget the loans. 2 lenders also went bankrupt, ruined. That too justifies a long and severe sentence. There's also the bribes, the bribery. It was all so pervasive. You have the defendant's costs and benefit analysis, which would allow him actually to do all of this over again. If Mr. Bankman-Fried thought mathematically it justified it, he'd do it again. Today he spoke about mismanagement. A painful few weeks of mismanagement. No acceptance of responsibility whatsoever. He never said he would not do it again. He did not swear he would not do it again. He has said if there is an opportunity to relaunch FTX or an equivalent, he would do it. That, I submit, tells the court exactly what could happen. A sentence here is absolutely needed of at least 40 years, if not more. Mr. Mukazi says the defendant is virtuous, that he is not a monster, but nonetheless, he committed serious crimes that harmed many, many people, and he would do it again. So appropriately, 40 to 50 years should be the sentence. Thank you, Judge Kaplan. Judge Kaplan saying, I've considered the guidelines and the 3,500 factors. That's a lot. Much of what was said about the defendant's background is totally undisputed. He was privileged, had loving, caring parents. He went to MIT. He had every advantage they could confer onto him. He went to work for Wall Street, making a lot of money, giving quite a bit of it away. Judge Kaplan saying there was testimony at trial, I don't remember by whom, but I learned that the people at Jane Street, they were encouraged to play quantitative games, bets, where Sam had been exceptionally ambitious and aware of his own talents. That Ms. Caroline Ellison testified he was very, very ambitious, that the defendant talked about building 2 huge companies, including wanting to use his amassed money to influence politics, going as far as saying there was even a 5% chance of him becoming president. Imagine that. Not a joke. Scam Sam for president. I nominate Caroline for VP. That'd be pretty nice ticket. Judge Kaplan continues, indeed, this was all a huge financial crime. On top of financial crimes, he was also one of the most politically influential people in the country. Financially influential. And it wasn't just on the left of the political spectrum, as we found out. Judge Kaplan saying, as we saw, he also set up vehicles to make donations to the right, through straw donations, which wouldn't come back to him. Where some of this, of course, would have been attributed to him trying to present himself, buying favors for appropriate regulations in the crypto business, in the crypto industry. In my judgment, that was a purposeful act, and he admitted it. On November the 15th or 16th, he was interviewed by a reporter that he knew well, who asked him, you said a lot of stuff about regulators. Was that just PR too? Asking Sam. Sam replied, yeah. Regulators. Judge Kaplan continues, it was a power influence. Caroline Ellison was asked how the defendant described his approach to risk. She answered, he said that he was risk neutral, but that he was comfortable as long as there was positive EV, positive expected value. Judge Kaplan, a man willing to flip a coin as to the continued existence of life on Earth. That is Sam Bankman-Fried. Mr. Scam Sam knew that Alameda was spending customer money on risky investments, political contributions, and even a ton of Bahamas real estate, where the funds were not his to use. The judge continues. One of the pithier expressions, I think, was, I fucked up. Mr. Bankman-Fried has every right to plead not guilty and go to trial. Everyone has that right. And I do not hold that against Mr. Bankman-Fried. But I come back to Miss Caroline Ellison's testimony that he knew. He knew this was all wrong. He does not need to admit anything. That's his right. He's not going to admit anything. Speaking of specific deterrence, his name is mud around the world. But Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried is very persistent, and he's a great marketing guy. Mr. Roos is right that the outlines of Sam Bankman-Fried's revised versions are clear. Even after his arrest, the same skills had him pitching his ideas, his story, to a huge number of people through the media. He had every right to do that. That was discussed. On general deterrence, at the end of the day, the criminal justice system thrives only if it's seen as fair. I could say a lot about that. We can all say a lot about that, can't we? The judge continues. People need to feel that it's fair. Feel that it's fair. Funny wording. Or we go back in time to trial by combat, folks fighting each other. So punishment must fit the seriousness of the crime. This was a very serious crime. Bear with me. The defendant, Scam Sam, will rise for the sentencing. At this time, Sam rises, as do his lawyers, his team of lawyers, about to get completely destroyed. Judge Kaplan, I know that the probation department recommends 100 years. The government recommends 40 to 50 years. That would be more than necessary. Judge Kaplan, I am not diminishing the harm. The brazenness of his actions, his exceptional flexibility with the truth, and his apparent lack of remorse. I want to add one further thought, that I don't think it's fruitful use of time to spell out every single lie that he told. When he wasn't lying, he was evasive, hair-splitting, trying to get prosecutors to rephrase questions for him. I've been doing this job for close to 30 years now. I have never seen a performance like that. Go Scam Sam. Oh my God. Now you got to picture that Sam standing up for this. Judge Kaplan, it is the judgment of the court that you are sentenced to 240 months, then consecutive 60 for a total of 300 months, 25 years. Mr. Bankman-Fried, would you like me to read you the conditions? Sam answers, no, thank you. I'm okay. Ouch. His attorney Mukazi says he wants to submit language regarding the designation of which facility, which jail Sam will potentially end up in. So, there's that. Judge Kaplan, anything else that we can talk about? And that was it. Scam Sam was led away with his hands behind his back. Well, pretty sad. So was justice served? I don't know. But I guess that's kind of life. If his appeal fails, he'll probably serve 10 years, maybe. Good behavior, I'm sure. So there is that to console Mama Bear and Papa Bear. So who knows if the parents will ever get charged. So far, they've only been sued by FTX estate, trying to claw back millions and millions of dollars and a bunch of the real estate that was purchased by FTX for the parents. So they have that battle going on with FTX. So we'll see. I'm curious to see what's going to happen to the others in the core group, Caroline, Nishad, and Gary Wang. But at the end of the day, I guess Scam Sam walks away with a small win. 25 years versus 100 years. 25 years versus 40 to 50 years. And in reality, those 25 years probably is more like 10 to 12, maybe. In fact, I'm actually surprised he got 25 years because those sentencing memorandums filed by his legal team, Mukazi, were exceptionally pathetic. Not only that, but the letters, their character reference letters by the parents, by their friends, their social circles, were absolutely horrendous. The supposed elite baby excuses for all the actions of Scam Sam and even the family. Pretty bad. I had to basically race back to civilization. I've been spending the last 2 weeks in a very, very remote area. Basically deep in the woods, a short hike from the Canadian border. And of course, being that far up north, the weather is, well, still pretty cold. And I've never kayaked before when it's freezing cold. And I gotta say, totally worth it. As long as you don't fall in the water. So of course I had to come back to civilization for our dear friend, Scam Sam. I needed to find out what the hell he was going to get. And so far, it has been pretty darn entertaining. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for joining me in the absolutely crazy financial novella of Scam Sam and all the FTX clowns that, well, are still screwing people over. You got to always be careful playing the crypto casino. I know, because I've been screwed too. So yes, been there. All right, guys, always a pleasure. Please don't forget to smash the like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.